Hello, and welcome to another episode of Quick and Nerdy, an MSP-friendly channel dedicated to Veeam-powered solutions for BAS and DRAS offerings. As always, I'm your host, Brandon McCoy, and today, got a brand new video, hot off the press, this one on the Service Provider Console Management Agent. When I was creating this video, I was torn between what to call it. Originally, I went with Service Provider Console Troubleshooting. But then I settled on VSPC Management Agent. So why was I going back and forth between these two titles? And more importantly, why am I telling you? Who cares, right? Just get to the video, Brandon. Well, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I want you to think of this video as a topic of the Veeam Management Agent, the Veeam Service Provider Console Management Agent, through the lens of troubleshooting. A lot of the troubleshooting steps that we recommend, kind of some ways to maybe fix a problem without having to open up a ticket with support, we always start with the management agent. It's a critical piece. So I've got some other videos that show you what the management agent does, how it gets installed, with the service provider console. We're not going to dive too deep into that here, but a quick refresh, the management agent is installed on the service provider's Cloud Connect, and the customer or even service provider facing backup solutions. So the customer, if they have a backup and replication server, the management agent gets installed on that. 365 gets installed on that. The Cloud Connect is going to be the receiving management agent, right? That's the difference between all these other management agents. Those are the customer-facing ones that are, doing the backups, whereas the management agent on your Cloud Connect is receiving all that information and then giving it to the service provider console. Now for those standalone agents, so endpoints, laptops, workstations that don't have a Veeam server managing them, and the service provider console manages those, there's a management agent on every single agent, Windows, Linux, or Mac. And there's a master agent. So this master agent is installed on the first machine. Maybe the customer has, let's say 10 physical devices in one environment that need to be protected. The management agent gets on the first one, and then we can use that to find the other 9 machines through Active Directory or network IP and put one of those management agents on each and every machine. Okay, and Veeam1, that's going to be on that server as well. If we look at the architecture here, we see where the management agents are. So we start with the very far right. We've got your service provider console. Service provider console is connected to your Cloud Connect server, and the management agent is installed on your Cloud Connect server, right? And that's I use the blue fidget spinner icon because when you look at the management agent icon when it's installed, hey, it does look like a fidget spinner. So anyway, on the left-hand side of the screen, these are the different customer-facing Veeam servers, or at least Veeam products that are actually doing the data protection. So from the top left, you've got backup and replication. Right next to that, you've got Veeam1. On the bottom left, you've got the individual agents that we just talked about. And then next to that, you've got your Veeam backup for Microsoft 365. Okay. Now, there are 2 types of management agents. There are internal for hosted scenarios, and then there are remote. And some of the products, you can go to the plugin library in the service provider console, and it gives you instructions on how to connect your Veeam products to the service provider console. And there is different steps for internal versus remote. The remote, that's where the customer is, remote. They're not local to where that service provider console is installed. So the Cloud Connect server is responsible for the connectivity between the service provider console and the customer through port 6180 to come into that Cloud Connect server. And then internally, if you also have firewalls, port 9999 is how the Cloud Connect server gets to the service provider console. So the management agent is installed at the customer site, and then it talks back to Cloud Connect, which then feeds into the console. Now on the bottom, towards the right, you'll see a backup and replication instance, and I've got it behind the Cloud Connect server rather than opposite. So that's to denote that this is an internal Veeam server, right? So I want a different management agent. And the big difference here is the management agent on the left that's remote, that is connecting to the Cloud Connect, or more specifically, the Cloud Connect gateway. So the Cloud Connect gateway has the management agent on it, or I'm sorry, the Cloud Connect server has the management agent on it, and through the Cloud Connect gateway, these two agents can talk. For the internal machines, there's typically no reason to connect to your Cloud Connect because it's already in that environment, right? You don't need any of that network extension. So you put an internal management agent on there, and the difference there is in the settings. Rather than connecting to your Cloud Connect gateway, you're connecting to the DNS or the IP of the service provider console directly, and that is through port 9999 as well. Okay. So with that, let's jump right into the lab and take a look at some of this in real time. So I've got my service provider console here. And so now that we know like the management agents, where they're installed, what they're doing, let's look at this from a troubleshooting perspective. And if I come to this discovery tab, this is where I start. So here's some common things that could happen. Your license usage report is off, right? Typically it says that you're backing up anywhere between 90 and 100 machines a month. Now it says you're backing up, 70, right? Big dip. And so where's that, missing usage? Typically, it's not that the usage report is broken. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I've never seen it. Typically, it's because something is not reporting in, right? Some other examples could be some of the alarms, like, your Veeam server is not communicating, and that's a little more straightforward, right? The Veeam server is not talking. There are alarms specifically for the management agent, and we'll take a look at those. But first, let's go to this discovery tab. So this is the first thing to do whenever you're getting errors that could possibly be related to the customer's Veeam server is no longer talking to the console. That could mean you're not getting backup jobs in time. So you might get you won't get a backup job failure because the Veeam server is not connected to tell it that it failed, right? But you could get an alarm that says you haven't had a backup in 48 hours, right? And that's because they're not talking to each other, right? So under this discovery tab, let me start from discovered computers. So the discovered computers, this means that there is a management agent on a Windows or sometimes Linux or Mac machine, and we are aware of that management agent, right? It doesn't tell us what Veeam product, it's just that there is a computer that has one on there. And I can see the management agents here. There's an error on this one, right? So I can, the management agent's unavailable. So anything that customer Veeam server is doing, I'm not going to know about. And so this could be the source of some of my problems. Real quick, just a side note, you'll see this deployment status, success. Some people ask me, hey, under deployment status, it doesn't say success. It's kind of blank like this one, even if it is connected. And sometimes that's because you manually installed the management agent. And if that's the case, you're not going to see a deployment status. The deployment status is for the service provider console, pushing that management agent out itself. And that is done in a few different ways depending on the product. Okay. So last thing to wrap this up. Now, in terms of how to install the management agent, that is covered in some of the other videos. So on my channel, if you go to playlists and you go to the service provider setup, pause this real quick, you'll see this video right here, VBR management from VSPC, right? Backup and replication through the console, and agent management through the service provider console. And it's going to show you how to obtain that management agent and the easiest way to install it. Now, I can manually install it from right here. And if I do, I want to make sure I choose the right management agent. Like I mentioned earlier, for internal, I want to use this management agent because it's not going to be looking for Cloud Connect. It's going to connect directly to the service provider console internally. And then for everything that is remote, I want to select the actual company, or I can also create a default management agent that doesn't have uh, the company credentials on there, right? So the last thing I want to do is I want to talk about, okay, we've looked at the service provider console. We've gotten some issues, right? The usage is inaccurate. The alarms are going off. I've come in here and I say, okay, this machine, the management agent is not installed on there. So let's go to that server. Let's do some troubleshooting. All right, this is the customer's Veeam server. I've found through looking at the service provider console that the management agent is either disappeared or has a big red X. The first thing I do is I go to backup infrastructure, service providers, and I make sure that as the service provider, my Cloud Connect is still in there, right? I can right click, I can do a rescan, or I can just go to properties here. Okay, and now as I talk about in the other videos, checking this box is what installs the management agent on remote VBR servers. Right now, I've got it checked, so that's the first thing. Did they check the box? Okay, we'll go through some verification here. We'll reestablish the connection to the service provider and just make sure that everything's talking. Right, we always want to check, the networking. Is DNS misconfigured? Am I not able to ping the Cloud Connect server? And then lastly, when you go through these, if you make any changes, so right here, updating remote management agent settings. Not sure if you can see that, but this is what is refreshing that management agent. And now if I search in Windows and I go to Veeam management agent, pull up that fidget spinner, and then if I come over here to the taskbar, I gotta maximize it, I believe. There we go. Let's pull that up. Okay, so this will usually say initializing just for a few seconds when you open it, but you should have a green checkbox. And if you don't, that's the issue, right? On both sides, the management agent is not responding. So I can go through that service provider refresh screen. I can uninstall and reinstall the management agent, and making sure that I have that green checkbox is going to be crucial. Hopefully this will connect in just a second. There we go. So that's what you want to see. If you don't, obviously that's the issue. If I go back to my service provider console here, I can also manually download those if I have to. I can log into the service provider console from the customer's Veeam server, assuming that the console is accessible over the web, and I can also send them an email with the download link for that management agent. Okay? That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, keep on Veeaming in the free world.